Part 1. The Threats. Chapter 1. What are the most serious threats we face today in the Middle East? My conversations with Mike Pompeo, former CIA Director and Secretary of State. I first met Mike Pompeo in June 2016 when he was serving his third term as a congressman from Kansas. One of his staff members had contacted me and asked if I would like to meet her boss the next time I was in Washington, D.C. She said Pompeo had been reading my books and was interested in my views on the dramatic changes underway in the Middle East. As it happened, I had just arrived in the U.S. from my home in Israel to speak at a series of conferences and events. I readily accepted the invitation, and we set the meeting for Friday, June 10th. Pompeo struck me as a down-to-earth, no-nonsense straight shooter who had seen his share of difficult times, and he intrigued me for several reasons. He was a U.S. Army vet who served on the House Intelligence Committee. He was also a devout Christian who had once taught fifth-grade Sunday school and whose faith shaped his worldview. Pompeo was also one of the more outspoken members of Congress in opposition to the nuclear deal that President Barack Obama had negotiated with Iran, calling it a historic mistake and a surrender. Particularly impressive to me was that Pompeo and Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas had discovered and exposed the stunning fact that the Obama team had allowed Iran to negotiate secret side deals with the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, without revealing the existence or the substance of these deals to Congress or the American people. When we met for coffee in his Capitol Hill office, we did not spend much time discussing our personal lives. Mostly we focused on Iran and the campaign of genocide being waged by the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, ISIS. I brought Pompeo two of my most recent novels as gifts: The Third Target, published in January 2015, and The First Hostage, published in December 2015. They were the first two installments of a trilogy I was writing about ISIS, portraying the group not simply as a terrorist threat, but as a genocidal threat fueled by the group's apocalyptic eschatology, a subject too few in Washington were focused on at the time. In The Third Target, ISIS jihadists capture a cache of chemical weapons in Syria and begin a series of attacks throughout the region. Feverishly seeking to expand the territorial reach of their Islamic kingdom known as a caliphate, they also try to assassinate the king of Jordan, blow up his palace, take over his kingdom, and fly their black flags over Amman. During our conversation, I explained to Congressman Pompeo that while I was researching and writing the book in 2013 and early 2014, President Obama was publicly dismissing ISIS as a JV team that posed no serious threat to the U.S. or our allies. However, as early as the summer of 2014, still months before my novel was released, it was becoming apparent that genocidal conditions were emerging, and the jihadists were willing to annihilate all who stood in their way as they tried to establish their Islamic State. As I was then saying publicly, this was as dark a time as any I had ever seen in the modern Middle East. ISIS had captured half of Iraq and was forcing Christians there to convert or die. More than 170,000 people had been murdered in Syria, and millions of Syrians had fled their homes to escape the violence. By the time The Third Target was released, the ghastly atrocities committed by ISIS were worsening exponentially. I used my book tour, including an address to the National Religious Broadcasters Convention, to explain and speak out against the apocalyptic theology driving the leaders of ISIS, calling on the Obama administration to formally declare the actions of ISIS as genocide and urging the White House to take far more decisive military action to end the slaughter of Christians, Yazidis, and Muslims.